2021-2022 MSJC Program Review for Instruction. Illumin Template Instructions. Section 1B, Part 2, subsections 1B2, 1B3, 1B4. Section 1B2. We have already visited this section. Here we list the changes to our PLOs, including any new ones that emerged in the previous section, 1B1. We'll use a table to organize this stuff. Here it is. We just cut and paste from our work in 1B1. Just make sure you include enough information: the new PLO, the CLO to which it connects, and the course. If you do want to introduce a new PLO that does not yet connect to a CLO, just make sure you connect it to an ILO. Here is a table for doing that. Always remember to hit Save Draft. Section 1B3, CLO New Assessment Tools. In this section, you will record any assessment tools you'd like to use for the CLOs you created in Section 1B1. Assessment tools are the work the students do that generate your Illumin scores. In the past, when we used our objectives as outcomes, we used our quizzes, tests, and final exams as assessment tools. Now that we are measuring skills, habits, values, and traits, not course content, we will need new assessment tools. Ideally, these would be multi-week projects students could complete, individually or collaboratively, that build the skill measured by the CLO and scored by the rubric. These projects would be completed mostly outside of class. Each student would score themselves using the Illumin rubric. Each project would conclude with the student revisiting the rubric and updating their score. Preferably, there would be 2 or 3 of these projects for each CLO. Each project would take 2 to 3 weeks to complete. Perhaps you or a full-time or associate faculty colleague already utilized such a project in your class. Perhaps you created it to improve student success for some particularly challenging course content. If so, ask yourself, what are the underlying skills or habits being developed through this project that students use to succeed learning this content? If you can articulate these skills and habits, and they not only help your students pass your class, but are transportable, i.e. they help form the foundation for lifelong learning, then include this skill or habit in one of your CLOs and this project as an assessment tool for that CLO. That is, you can create learning outcomes, CLOs and or PLOs, working backward from an existing class project, provided that project really imparts habits and skills that support lifelong learning for an ILO. It is likely that assessing skills, habits, values, and traits is so new that you will need to think a lot more about this before you can create an assessment tool for a particular CLO. Your assessment coordinator will be glad to collaborate with you. So don't be concerned if you have nothing to enter here. Just say, "We'll collaborate with assessment coordinator in the near future," and you're done. Be on the lookout for future Transforming Lives videos that provide support and training for this work. If you or another instructor have begun this work, you can scroll down to Section 2D, Responsibility Schedule, and enter the information requested. Note, please do not enter faculty here without their express permission. An email trail is best. You are scheduling work, not assigning it. Please view the instructions for Section 2D before you enter responses in that section. Here is our sample response. We'll collaborate with the assessment coordinator in the near future. If you have actual assessment tools, create a table like you did earlier in Section 1 and list the assessment tool along with the corresponding CLO. Remember to hit Save Draft. Section 1B4. Now that you have created new CLOs in Section 1B1 and created, if needed, corresponding PLOs in Section 1B2 and the corresponding assessment tools in Section 1B3, or have made plans to do so in the future, we need corresponding rubrics in Section 1B4. That is, for each CLO created in Section 1B1, we need a corresponding PLO assessment tool and rubric. While the rubric measures achievement of the corresponding CLO, without an actual assessment tool, it may be difficult, if not impossible, to provide enough specificity for each rubric score to create a meaningful rubric for both faculty and students. Once again, the assessment coordinator will collaborate with you. So, if you have your CLOs recorded in Section 1B1, but little else done in Section 1B, just say, "We'll collaborate with Assessment Coordinator in the near future," and you are done. Here is our sample response. "We'll collaborate with the Assessment Coordinator in the near future." Remember to hit Save Draft. Before we conclude these instructions, let's look at a quick example. While future Transforming Lives videos will cover rubric design, let's rough out a response to Section 1B4. That way, if you and/or your colleagues have ideas or have already begun constructing a rubric for a CLO back in Section 1B1, you can enter the work here. To construct a rubric, let's use an Illumin table. We'll create a 4-scale rubric with scores 4, 3, 2, and 1, and put it in an extra column for the CLO. This means we'll need 5 columns and 1 row. Here is our table. Remember to hit Save Draft. Typically, the top score of 4 indicates exceptional performance. We don't expect many students to score a 4. A 3 typically corresponds to a student who meets expectations, and we expect most students to earn this score. A 2 corresponds to a student performance that is below expectations, and a 1 corresponds to a performance that needs improvement. Let's use the CLO from 1A1. The student will communicate with accuracy. Recall this was an example for math. To describe each score level with enough detail to differentiate one score from another, and so that faculty and students can utilize the rubric effectively, similar work for different students earns the same score, we need to add language for each score. A 4 would pretty much be perfect. All symbols, exponents, parentheses, limits of integration, etc., included in their proper locations. A 3 would allow for acceptable but infrequent error. A 2 would indicate that increased attention to detail was needed. A 1 would mean additional help from the instructor and/or tutors would be necessary. Even more specific language would be helpful, but this might be the best we can do right now. Once we have an actual student project or learning experience, we can tie the rubric language more closely to that learning experience. Also, as students and faculty use the rubric, they will provide input for more specificity and language improvement. Again, watch for future Transforming Lives videos. Once you have a completed rubric, send it to the assessment coordinator and it will be entered into Illumin so you can score your students. If you or another instructor have begun this work, you can scroll down to Section 2D, Responsibility Schedule, and enter the information requested. Note, please do not enter faculty here without their express permission. An email trail is best. You are scheduling work, not assigning it. Please view the instructions for Section 2D before you enter responses in that section. If you have any questions or would like assistance, please contact Program Review at msjc.edu. This template needs to be completed no later than 19 November 2021. The wraps and cappers are due 17 December 2021. Thank you for your participation.